Okay. So, good morning, everybody. I'm really excited to be here. Oh, okay, that was really nice. Good morning. I'm really excited to be here to talk about career because I've heard a lot of energy around it, a lot of questions, just a lot of transition, I think, for a lot of folks. So, I'm just really excited to talk about careers. A little bit about my background is I did my internship and got my master's in career counseling. So I worked at the San Mateo College Career Center, and then I also worked at the San Mateo County Workforce Development Department, connecting dislocated workers with new job skills classes and helping them out with their resumes and that type of thing to get them prepared for a new career. So I love talking about work. I could talk about it all day, really. I think that resumes, cover letters, it's just really an exciting thing for me. I'm kind of a nerd about it because they tell a story about who you are. You know, if you really want to get creative and connect with your resume, I'd be happy to just talk to you. If you ever have questions, you could email me, and I'd be happy to review your resumes, cover letters, talk to you on the phone about interviewing. I just really think it's an exciting thing to move into to new work. So that's a little bit about me. I did want to point out the green cards that are on the floor in front of you. So just some norms to expect in a workshop like this is to just stay engaged. I know sometimes we might talk about things and you may start to feel like, ooh, some feelings may come up because a lot of a person's purpose and fulfillment, all of that thing, just really comes up around work. So I think people may disengage and start really kind of experiencing some anxiety or things like that. So just stay present and stay with the process. So that's the first point. The second is to speak your truth. So we all have built a little bit of trust and relationship here. So if you do have something you'd like to share and it may be different than what I say or somebody else says, feel free to speak your own truth. The third point is to experience discomfort that you may start feeling, like I said, some anxiety or anger or anxiousness, oh my gosh, I got to find work, or I'm not doing enough. I've heard that a lot this past week. So just know you may experience some discomfort. Listen for understanding. So we're here all as a resource to listen and learn from one another. And then no fixing. So it could be tempting that, you did this really great thing and you want to help and fix somebody else's situation, but try not to fix, but say just the I statements, what's worked for you. And then taking risks. So that just kind of goes hand in hand with the speaking your truth. So those are just some things to keep in mind while we're working here today. So I told you a little bit about me, but I also do want to share with you that working with this particular group, I do have a limitation in that I don't have a progressive illness, so I can't speak to, I don't know what it's like to go and talk to an employer about your disability or accommodations and that type of thing. So that's something I really just want to be open about. I have a limitation in that sense. So I invite you to push back if something doesn't sit right with you about what I say. I could go on about things based on what my work experience has been, but if you're like, that doesn't work for me, or I tried that, feel free to push back, because this is a unique community and you may have unique experiences that I'm not really being mindful of. So feel free to just push back. So the other thing is for you to expect me to redirect conversation. Sometimes we get a little goofy and, we like to have fun and go off in different directions. So please don't be butthurt if I, stop and interrupt you and say, we got to go back and address things, because we really only have 2 hours here today, and I really want us to walk away with some good resources and information. So I love you all. So if I interrupt you, it's not that I don't love you. It's just I want us to get a lot out of this. Okay, so I wrote down here some different things that I thought could be important to address today, and I just thought we'd go over some of them and maybe put a star next to the ones that seem to be most important to you all. And if there's something not on this list, we can incorporate that in here today. So I broke it into 4 different areas here. And so the first one is preparing to seek employment. So I think the big question we already talked about this week is employment right for you at this time? So that's been something that's come up, is that sometimes just due to your health, you may not be able to work right now. And so it's just really staying true to what we talked about, is putting your health first and assessing when it's right for you to look for work and how much work is too much. So that's the first thing. Any feelings that are coming up about looking for work? Sometimes depression comes up. These are issues that we can talk about later on in the week as well. The second part that we're kind of going to address is at that point, so you get an interview, and then some questions you may have are when to disclose the disability, or if you want to expose your disability, gaps in your resume due to illness, and missing work due to illness. So that's kind of after you get an interview and you're getting into that next phase. I also have a career exploration component. It's just a fun True Colors assessment. How many of you have ever done a True Colors test to figure out what color you are and how that incorporates your personality with the type of jobs you would be good at? So it's kind of just a fun way to get to know yourself. I think the more you know about yourself, the more prepared you will be when you're looking for work, right? And then the last part is the knit grit, because FYI, nobody says nitty gritty anymore. It's just the knit grit. Yeah, so that's my first lesson of the day, is it's been shortened to just the plain knit grit. So if you have questions about cover letters, resumes, networking, interviewing resources, we can just get down and talk about those types of things. So what would be most important? What would be most helpful for you?
Probably missing work due to illness and when to disclose the disability.
Yeah, those are good things. Also, you mentioned something about if you're sick and like explaining, oh, I didn't do this because I was coughing my head off
Okay.
or something. Like how to put that down.
On the laws and DBA and FMLA.
So just one second. Let me get to yours in a second. But Devin, let me just see if I could capture yours as maybe compensating for if you didn't complete a project and how to make up for that or communicate those limitations.
Something like that. Because for me personally, like a lot of my friends are like going off getting internships, and I haven't really done that because, you know, I might be in the hospital or something.
Okay.
So I guess just what do I do other than freak out?
Yeah, we don't want to freak out. Yeah, that's good. Okay, and then you also mentioned.
Like the rights we have as an employee and our rights with ADA. How we link with ADA or ADA rights.
Okay.
And our FMLA rights.
Mm-hmm. So that's not something that I know too much about, but I do have resources for you to connect with, and then maybe some other folks in the room have had that experience, so that's something that would be helpful. Okay. Just going back to this page here, is there something here that you're like, no, I'm good, you know, we don't need to do that?
I would add, like, not just for the interview, the gaps in resume, but sort of the rustiness that you can develop by taking time off and sort of forgetting some of the ways that you're supposed to do stuff because it's been years since you
Yeah.
did this work, because you haven't gone back to work for that many years. And just kind of starting off like a newbie, or even worse than a newbie. Because when I was a newbie, I was straight out of grad school and had all these fresh ideas.
Yeah.
And now I feel like I've died and come back, which I kind of have. So I'm very, very rusty.
Yeah, absolutely. That's good. I'll tell you a story about that. Is I was researching what projects, what kind of things we could do here today. And back in the day when I was doing my program, we did this card thing that, you know, people go through to find their values using cards. And when I called my supervisor from there, she's like, we don't do that anymore. It's like all on computer now. Get with it. You know, so sometimes stuff gets obsolete. And if you're out of practice, you know, you get rusty, or new things come along. So that's a good one. Okay. Yes. Taylor.
What about things like where you've worked at one job, but it was only a short amount of time, and then say you got sick, so you, for whatever, either stopped working, lost the job, whatever it was, and then you start another job, maybe the same thing happens. Like, my problem is that I very ambitious, I guess, so I start a job thinking, like, this is going to be great, it's going to be amazing, work myself, you know, too hard, get sick. So I end up taking time off, and then I either go to a new job or whatever it may be. Same thing happens. To employers, that just looks like you can't hold a job, or you're, you know, just moving place to place to place. So how do you go about explaining that it was your choice, you know, you weren't fired, it was your choice to maybe stop working and start somewhere else in a few months because you feel good again?
Okay. So having that, you know, taking over that power of choice, if that was something
Yeah,
that you...
because I know, like, at corporate jobs, like, or large jobs, you know, you do have where it's like the sick leave and you can kind of take time off and then go back, which is what I'm doing now. But then there's the other jobs that are just, you know, they don't offer that because they're not, it's just like a small place. So you just pretty much have to quit it or stop.
Yeah.
And then you go to another place on your resume. I mean, it just looks bad. It looks like you can't hold a job and you're going place to place.
Great.
So how do you explain
Yeah.
that?
So that's a good point, because I think you could oftentimes turn something like that could be perceived as a negative and show it as a positive. So we could talk about that, you know, maybe in your cover letter, really stating that you took on these new, better opportunities so that you can learn and grow, you know, that type of thing. So, okay.
Also when applying for jobs, like motivation and kind of the go-get-em attitude, like I feel like I'm more introverted when it comes to that
Yeah.
and then just putting yourself out there really is difficult for me.
Okay, so we got some good stuff. We got a lot to do in the hour and 45 minutes we have. So, okay, so what we've talked about is employment right for you? And I've heard different things. I think I heard Kayla saying it's a catch-22, because in that industry, you got to put it all out there, 100%, 40 hours a week, and that is supposedly the standard for that industry, right? And I've heard Alex say yesterday that he's found that balance of really putting his health first and taking time to make sure that he's doing work part-time and being creative about work that works for him, right? So I've heard some discussions about that, but how do you really assess if employment is right for you right now?
That's a hard assessment. One day you could be going great for a couple of weeks, and the next one you could, and then it's not an option.
That's right. Is anybody struggling with that right now?
Well, I think my biggest thing is just like my trend in the fact that I get hospitalized pretty much every month type thing, like month out, going in for 2 weeks, month out, going in for 2 weeks sort of thing. So, you know, for other people too, they might be either struggling where they're going back and forth and you kind of have to admit to yourself like it's not the right time, or the other way around where you do have to say, okay, maybe that was the past, but now I'm feeling healthy. I need that motivation to go back because I can't let myself think I'll always be sick or whatever. You have to let yourself have that strength to go to work and to motivate yourself and have the dedication to yourself to prove yourself that you can do it.
Yeah, I definitely had to get feedback from other people. Like when I wanted to dive right back into full-time work recently, my mom kind of gave me a reality check. Like, do you remember how like you felt when you were working full-time? Like, I think you may have forgotten how miserable you were. And like, I had just like totally forgotten the negative.
I think taking the type of job into consideration would be very important. Is it fast-paced, are you on your feet all day? Are you expected to lift, move, put away? It's a big factor. Can you work full-time? Well, people don't hire full-time right now. You work 20 hours as opposed to 40. What are the expectations of the job, and can you meet those demands?
So what I'm hearing a lot is knowing yourself and then also knowing what type of job you're getting into. And has anybody tried, I don't know, push back if I'm wrong here, but really doing a daily check-in or diary about your health to monitor how many days you've got your up days and how many bad, and kind of figuring out, is it about every other day? Would that help to kind of track your health? Or is it totally inconsistent? And
Well, I would answer that, in the days of my CF, where how I was depended on how much I did. So if I pushed myself to do a lot, then I would generally start getting sicker. And if I was home and resting and doing nothing but treatments, I would pretty much be able to stay stable. But that's not a quality of life for me, and that's why I really felt like I wanted to do something. So one of my answers to this question of like, is employment right for you? Well, when I was living with very, very unpredictable CF, like the only, and keep in mind I'm married, so I have the excuse of having someone else pay the bills, and I know that's very fortunate. But the only thing that worked for me was volunteer work, where I was feeling like I was doing something meaningful and still contributing and say getting some job skills. But when I had my massive hemoptysis and landed in the hospital, I could say, sorry, I'm not available right now. And that worked for me for quite a long time. But then the negative was that I felt not quite worthy because I wasn't getting a paycheck.
And then there comes up that big worthy thing that we talked about with Andrea yesterday, and really trying to set your sights, up to meeting society's standards of work and what that looks like. And I can't imagine, what that pressure would feel like, and you gotta to meet that standard. But to maybe just discussing that today is a way for us to just start to let that go. And it's going to be an ongoing battle, right? That next week when you're looking for work or you're talking to other folks who are working 40 plus hours, that you kind of go right back there. Ooh, I should be doing that. And it's that should that comes up. So to start to let that go and start to unpack that out of that heavy backpack that you're carrying. Just start to take that should out and recognize that, whatever you're doing to be happy, to be healthy is the priority here. I mean, you said that really works, that when you're really taking care of your health and yourself first, then the other stuff comes as well. So just balancing that out. That's a tough one. How about sources of support? You mentioned your husband, but what other sources of support do you have to help you in moving into this new transition?
Like not working or working?
Well, either, because some people are working, some aren't, so.
Because when I went for a job, I kind of got lucky because one of my supervisors knew exactly what CF was. And in fact, he was married to Jenny Orton, so it was like easy for him to knew what I needed to do. So, and so he every once in a while he would ask, "How am I doing?" And I'd tell him and that sort of thing. And so then he knew when I needed a break and stuff like that. And I usually get it. Unless it was like really, really busy, then. But like I said, he knew when I could. He knew when I was ready to go. He knew when I needed a break, and I said, "Well, that usually I worked part time. It was fine with me, but then they always ask me, can you work more hours?" And I'd say yes, and sometimes I'd be wrong, and sometimes I would be fine. But like I said before, I landed in a job where everything was going to be fine because they knew what CF was. He knew what CF was, and so I don't want to say this, but I will. I didn't have to explain it. I didn't have to run through the whole gamut of what this is and all that kind of stuff. They already knew. So that kind of made it easy for me.
You had a good source of support.
Yeah, they knew. I didn't have. The only bad thing is the owner told him without asking me without asking how I felt about it. But once we got through that, I was like, okay, he knows, so big deal.
Thank you, Brian. How has anybody worked with vocational rehab counselors?
I
I
did.
think I talked to somebody who's not here today that said she had 2 really good caseworkers and 1 who wasn't. But that's a source of support to seek out. You have?
I did. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Again, it also, like the person said, it depends on who you get, because sometimes you get a really great one, but then sometimes you'll get one that says, "Oh, you're totally wrong," and like try to change everything. And my second counselor did, and I was like, "No, I want to." This was dealing with school. I want to finish school. I want to get this done. I want to do this, and it kind of put a bad taste in my mouth, and I left on a bad note. But I had to leave. I wanted to get my degree. Wanted to do this. I had to do things my way. But my original counselor, she was like encouraging me and everything. And when they had to switch me, I was like, okay, they switched me, but this didn't work, and I had to do my own thing.
Okay. So is there a reason why more people haven't sought that out as a resource, or if somebody did and it was awful? Any feedback about that, Kelly?
Well, I went through both rehab counseling kind of backwards. I was applying for a federal job, and to apply for a federal job, you get extra so many points if you're disabled. But you have to go to a local rehab counselor process and get trained, on a college education, get certified to go rehab, training to the feds that yes, you are permanently disabled. And that gave me my extra points to get hired. So I had to kind of go through the little hoops, go through the steps to get my certification that yes, I'm permanently disabled. And they had to check all my history. So I kind of did it differently. And I had a very wonderful local rehab counselor, and every year I email her and say, okay, I have to give you a letter because every year you have to be certified. When you're not cured, when you're still disabled, and even though I hit my grace period of 3 years in the government, they still have to certify that. So if I ever want to reapply for a new position in the government, they always need to see that, yes, you are permanently disabled.
Thank you.
I think one of the challenges is that a lot of people don't know what resources are available to them to support them. And then, like you mentioned earlier, there's that motivation. So someone gives you all this information, but then you're kind of apprehensive to actually make that phone call or to start looking at information up. And I think that's definitely challenging. Like, even when you have all this resource in front of you, which one do you go to? It's almost like you want to, like, a resource that's familiar to you, or someone who's done it before to kind of be there for you, for your support,
Mm-hmm.
really reach out and get started.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. Yeah. So, that support, is there one person that you can talk to and really connect with to help motivate you? Maybe when you're starting to feel a little bit down about it, is it connecting with another CFer and kind of just emailing, hey, I put out a resume today, or journaling, I think, can be a great way to just write down what your thoughts and feelings and motivation is.
I went to a life coach for a short period of time, Darlene Batchelder. Has come here before. Really cool, and I didn't go for more than a few months, but she kind of pushed me to be outside my comfort zone, which is something I needed, because when you're on your own and trying to figure stuff out, it's easy to say, oh, I don't feel like doing that, and then not doing it. But she said that I should write to every single person that I know by email, and said, hi, I'm just wanting to reach out for support. This is what I'm interested in doing. I'm interested in finding a job. And if you have anybody that you know, or if you know a position that's available or a possibility, let me know. So I sent that to 200 people. It was kind of embarrassing. And I only got a small handful of responses. Nothing came of it. But I wasn't very aggressive. But it's kind of like using other people's advice to do something I would never really think about doing. Because how would my, honestly, how would my friend from camp know about my career desires? I always put an answer in other people's heads, thinking that they can't help me.
I totally.
But it's not necessarily the case.
Yeah. So that touches a little bit on networking, right? So that was your way to do a little bit of networking and cast that net. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. We can talk about that a little bit later. But stepping out of your comfort zone, that must have been tough, because that's not easy to do, is reach out and really put it out there. I think there's a fear that comes. You set up that barrier, that block before even starting, just that fear of failure, or what are people going to think. So that's a real legit concern.
And just to add to that, what I learned most from that experience is how to answer someone else's question the most appropriate way. Because you won't believe how many people just wrote, oh, Isa, you'll be great at XYZ. You're such a great person. Well, did that help? Did that get me anywhere? No, because I actually wasn't feeling like a great person, because I've been unemployed for 8 years. So it was completely empty advice, or useless feedback. And now I know if someone asks me for, it's really like concrete advice. Do you know somebody who works in XYZ? I would actually really stop and think and try to find someone and focus on the actual question asked, not oh, but you're so wonderful, Jamie, you can do anything. That doesn't mean anything. That's a good point.
So I think what we're seeing here is it maybe planting the seed today, is we're kind of planting a seed that we're going to try to be mindful of these things, of identifying support, maybe reaching out to some sources of support that we haven't before, a voc rehab person, somebody in the industry, going, if you see somebody that's the job that you think you'd be interested in, doing an informational interview, something like that. So identifying support, really being aware of what your health limitations are, and taking on something that you could manage, because I think Sonia said it best, if it's realistic and sustainable, right? Because you don't want to take something on, get exhausted, you have to quit, and then do it all over again. That just must be exhausting. Yeah. So again, like, we're not really gonna, this is that expect non-closure today, so this is, again, we're planting the seed, but, so we kind of covered just being mindful of employment, and that we don't need to take 40, 50-hour work weeks, you know, right? Just being realistic about it. We talked a little bit about feelings around looking for work. Is anybody currently looking for work? Okay, a couple kind of, so we'll see how that goes. What motivates you to put your best face forward and say, I would be great at this job, this is the perfect thing for me, and here's why? You know, how do you get that confidence and motivation?
I really do believe that, like, from prior experience in my work, that I will do a good job. I do believe that. I don't have to, like, trick myself into believing it, but I think it's just hard, it's just hard to get the foot in the door. Like, I really know I'll do a good job if I got hired, but it's just, do I have that much experience when I'm applying for? Not really. But I've had prior experiences where I've gone into a new industry and, like, picked it up really quickly. So I'd like to do that in the next step that I'm taking. But again, it's like forming the cover letter and the resume
Love
to get
that
your
stuff.
signature.
Yeah. And maybe if we could today just take a change of heart and it's a cover letter and a resume. It's awful, to have to do that to, this is fun. Like, I see this job description, I'm excited about it, and I'm going to prove to these people why I could do it. You know, you're taking the exact language in the job description, and you're psyched about, thinking back about what you've done that is a transferable skill and quantifying it and making it your story so that when you turn it in, you're excited about it. Like, this is who I am, and I'm the perfect person for this, So even just changing that, that going into it, that you're going to tell your story and nail it. And again, I'm totally into that type of thing. So I would love to help you with that.
I think some advice for you would be, I think it's great if you already know that you're good at the skill that you want to do and you're confident about once you get the job that you're going to hold it and do great at it. For me, it's kind of, I've been lucky where I am pretty extrovert and I have like a big personality. So it's just more like going in and taking a risk and being really confident and excited about your interview and proving to them that without you, it's their loss. Because you have to show that, maybe you haven't worked for so long, or maybe this is your first job or whatever it may be for people. But I think proving to them that, like for me, I'm so young for my industry or whatever, and I'm only like a year, 2 years out of school. And so for me, I'm going in and saying, look, I have the best ideas that anybody has because I'm the newest person in the industry. And all these people have so much experience. I mean, it's not being like cocky. I'm just saying, like, showing to them. All these people have so much experience and so many years of hard work. But you know what? Like, I have all the new techniques. I trained last year. I know exactly what people want now. And you're at the perfect age where it's like the people that, for me, for people that are going out to restaurants or whatever, it's more like 20s, 30s, 40s. So for me, it's like, you know what? I know what people want because I'm that age, and that's the things that I'm doing. And you just have to make it fit the career that you're doing for you and try to prove to them that really, like, because of your personality and your drive and your focus, they really can't move forward without you. And if you go somewhere else, that place is going to do better. And it's kind of like, you're kind of tricking them in a way into thinking that, which is, you just have to be able to word it right. And you honestly, like, my last interview, I talked to the guy for like 2 hours in an interview, and I told him, I've done charity work, I'm part of Make-A-Wish or part of CFF or whatever it is, and you tell them, like, look, I want to get us involved with that because by doing that, it's gonna bring your company awareness to other people and get you more business. You know, while helping others, but it's gonna get you more business too. So you kind of have to prove that you're bringing something to the table. I think. That was sort of it.
Absolutely. I think I love your excitement and your confidence around it because I could tell what you're looking into, the career you're looking into is what you love.
Mhm.
And I think when you're able to show an employer that, they can read that, you know, instead of, oh, this is just a person that's coming here because they want to get paid.
Yeah.
So I've had the luxury or not of hiring a few hundred people in my career. And I can tell you when I interview people, the people that impact me the most are the ones that look me right in the eye, they're very articulate, and they talk slowly, but you know they have meaning behind their words. And those people that'll stare you in the eye, they're the ones that are really trying to sell themselves to you, as opposed to the person that talks and talks and talks and looking all around down at their paper in front of them or what have you. But if they're talking in my eyes, they're full of meaning, and that just means a whole lot. So when you are interviewing, try that and see how successful you can be.
I agree with Paul. When I would hire for my shop, you know, you're looking for very specific things. You're looking for, is someone going to fit into this program that we've developed? Is somebody, even if you've never had that type of job, new need is great because you can train them how you want them, but you're looking for enthusiasm for the brand. You know, are you going to run the shop as an owner the way I would want it run? Are you flexible with, if this doesn't happen, can you make up, you know, something else? Are you, if you're getting into customer service, which is super, super hard in the restaurant business, you can't be afraid of germs, people, money, sweeping, mopping, bathrooms, all that. It's all a big part of that. In the interview, when I used to hire people, the thing I was looking for was a lot of enthusiasm. You know, even though you've never had a job, and I'm used to working with young teens, and they really don't know how to sell themselves, but you're not selling yourself. I want an honest answer. You know, I have to work because my parents are making me work. Okay, well, tell me more about yourself. Are you in school plays? Are you, you know, do you do this? Are you in scouts? All kinds of stuff. Volunteering
Yes.
is a really big step because you're used to putting yourself out there and working with people, and you can take criticism and you can take people yelling at you and let it roll off your back, no problem.
Right.
So sometimes, you know, if you're looking for getting into the restaurant business, you got to be able to do that. And can you handle somebody yelling at you and not getting offended?
And you gotta handle being able to, like you said, like, sometimes you have to start from the bottom. Whether you've had a career in that industry or not, you have to be able to pick up a broom sometimes and sweep and get your hands dirty and be humble at your job. Like, I mean, maybe I made it sound like being overconfident, but I meant like, you know, you have to be able to do things you don't want to too, and be able to respect that and do it.
I think a big piece when you're thinking about motivation, how to get that confidence and how to even start, comes when you feel like you're ready. You know, when you're feeling like, all right, I'm healthy enough to do this, and just believing in yourself enough to make that first step, and getting excited about finding a job that's a good fit. So instead of, I've heard people talking about having a lame job, you know, and sometimes that's what you got to do to get by and get the wheels rolling. But while you got that lame-o job, you know, just keep an eye out and start thinking about what would really be fulfilling to me, you know, and put it out there. And networking, asking folks about opportunities will come, and that motivation comes when you start getting excited about that feeling that you can do it. Kind of sounds like some mumbo jumbo, but I do believe there is some truth in that, because after I graduated, you know, it's scary. It is scary stuff looking for work, but to get excited about the possibilities. Yeah. And I'm not doing exactly what I wanted to do after I graduated. My title is Student Organizations and ORCA Card Manager. What is that, right? I didn't think, you know, after going to school that I was going to be a Student Organizations and ORCA Card Manager. But here I am, and I've, you know, gotten into this job, and I've made it into something that I love. So it's also about having that flexibility, right? Does anybody have any other feelings about looking for work, motivation, issues, confidence? Like, is anybody just feeling down and low about moving forward?
Kind
So what are those blocks? What are those barriers for you?
Well, for me, I mean, I haven't really started looking for work yet. I'm still in school and everything. But I feel like my main motivation is just abject fear of like not having a job, not doing anything, and slowly spiraling down to death and destruction and a giant death, whatever. And I don't think that's going to be healthy at all if I'm looking for work because I'm afraid of imploding. So I guess I feel like my motivations are going to be completely wrong, and I'm going to, I don't know, whatever.
Somehow you gotta get past that, because if you haven't tried and you feel like you're, I don't know, maybe you're gonna fail before you walk in the door, that's not gonna help you.
yourself up to fail.
Yeah, yeah. You gotta get an attitude change that this is easy, this is something I can conquer, and I know I'm good enough to be able to do it. And that's kind of the first step, get through it, because, again, if you go in with that mindset, that's how you'll end up.
And also, you gotta remember that everyone else is feeling somewhat similar to that as well. So it's not like you're at a real deficit compared to everyone else that's going for these jobs. I mean, you're kind of all in the same playing field. And, you can just kind of step into it just as well as they can. So you need to kind of keep that present in your mind that your competition isn't so much outclassing you, that you don't stand a chance to do that.
I don't think people think they're gonna fail. I think they're just afraid of new environment, a new situation, like what they're looking for, their expectations. People don't want to change, like consistency. And rather they think it's failing, you think you're afraid of failing, or you think you're gonna fail, but no, it's just you're afraid of the unknown.
Or afraid of getting rejected. That's a big thing, like, it's just hard to be rejected when you think you can do a good job at something, and, you're just not qualified enough, don't have enough experience, whatever the no's are, that's hard.
Have you thought about maybe, if you have, like, it sounds like maybe you have something that you really want to do. Have you thought, like, say you really want to work at, like, this company over here, maybe you should go on a few interviews to these places just to work on those interviewing skills so that you have all of that there. And you know what, if you get offered a job there, one of those places, that might be a great backup. So when you go on this interview, if you end up getting rejected, you can turn to one of those. But, maybe you'll get that job because you've talked to all these different interviews, and every person that interviews really asks different questions and interviews in a different way. So it's good to have all that experience under your belt before going for that major place that you want to work at. I did that for a while. When I couldn't work, I actually did that for a little bit. Like, I felt down because I wasn't working, so I decided, you know what, I'm just gonna go to interviews just to, keep getting that experience and keep having those talks so that when it's time and I go to the interview I want, I'm gonna nail it because it's gonna be like a breeze compared to everything. And you get more confidence too.
That's an excellent suggestion.
Yeah.
I have a friend who's happy in her job, but she schedules an interview once a year at least with another company just to keep her skills fresh. I think that's a good
I think that's
Yeah.
great.
And what I have been doing is applying for jobs that I'll think in my head like, oh, they won't hire me, I know they won't, but I'll apply anyway, just for the exercise of writing the cover letter and forming the resume to that specific thing, because it's a good exercise.
But you gotta put that shout out to the universe, like, that really might get an interview and be qualified for this job. Just don't be afraid to put that energy out there that it absolutely could work. Yeah.
I know some companies, like, if you realize how with a company, that there's a potential to volunteer or do a temp position with the company. Employers are gonna hire that volunteer or that temp first. Because I knew, I did a couple of temp jobs for a couple of years ago, and probably just kind of plummeted.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the employees would do, is they're hiring a temp for 90 days, and if they like the temp, they can hire them permanently with the company. If not, there's no strings attached, and said, well, the contract's over, no feelings hurt.
Right.
And it was, you go ahead and, you know, if you want the job great, if not, you know, there's no feelings hurt. So you had a little more, less pressure. So at least you knew what the company expected out of you.
Yeah, that's a great point, Kelly. Yeah, and then I have 2 case studies. Bridget was one person who started out volunteering, and then it turned into a job because everybody loved Bridget, so of course. And she ended up. They were very accommodating. They knew what she needed, what hours. And got her that part-time job through volunteering. And then I think Sonia was also saying that she took on a volunteer gig that transitioned over to work. So that could be something, Devin, that maybe you could explore volunteering because it's low commitment, and then it could move in that direction.
Another thing that helped me is that, and again, I'm going back to networking, and I learned this from my husband. He's so good at doing this. Like, he'll just go and call some vice president and have lunch with them, and I would be like, oh, I'm not worthy, why would they want to meet with me, I'm nobody, But he doesn't care, he'll just, if they say no, they say no.
Yeah.
But he would have lunch with these people, and I think
Joe Biden?
No, like of companies and of people that are in the companies he is interested in getting into, and, or, political groups and so on. And he, I don't remember who would pay, but I ended up, meeting some social worker at various hospices, because I wanted to work in hospices, and going out to lunch, and, something simple, so I might pay $10 to just treat them, even though most of the time they say I don't need to. But as a courtesy, and just ask them about their job, ask them about the business, ask them about what they think, what advice they could give me to get more, my foot in the door. And then the irony is, like, after doing that 5, 6, 7 times, like, you can start saying, oh, I know so-and-so, oh yeah, I met so-and-so, and oh yes, I know that agency, and then everybody in that world knows each other, and so it kind of shows that you're already in group. And I think that helps, and if there are conferences, I do, as expensive as they are, go to those conferences, meet those people again, network again, and then gradually, sort of, that was one way I got hired.
Absolutely, I think that's huge.
Just lunch.
Right. So, and that's called informational interviewing. Is you get together for coffee or just get to their office, and people love talking about themselves. So they're gonna love that. You're gonna come. Hey, how did you do it? What classes did you take? What's your favorite part of this job? What's your least favorite part? How do you think I could make a step to get into this industry? And they love helping. People really like helping. So I think that's a great way to get a toe in the door. And they're going to remember you as that eager beaver who came, a year or 2 earlier. They'll remember you, when they have a position. Oh, that person was really proactive and interested, right? So informational interviewing is a great way to start to build that community.
Can I add one more thing?
Sure, just before I forget,
Yeah, go ahead.
one note about informational interviewing is the big no-no is to actually ask for a job when you're there. Yeah, so once you're there and you're asking questions, leave it at that. Thank you so much for your time, but don't, at the end, solicit them for work.
Is it appropriate to ask for a business card?
Yeah.
Sure, yeah, yeah.
And carry your own informational business card with you
Yeah.
always.
Absolutely.
I was just going to say that in conversation, I often say, well, I'm kind of interested in XYZ. And have you ever done that at your group, at your organization? And sometimes they'll say yes, sometimes they'll show interest. And so I already have, not on me, but at home, like a proposal. And it's a project proposal. Well, maybe your group can benefit from this little project. And so even if it's like 2 or 3 pages of a project description and the goals, objectives, and the benefit, and then the budget, you know, like it's $1,000 to put on this program. Most of these groups can, that's a penny in a pot, right? So, then I'm kind of offering something if they're interested, no pressure, but it's not like asking for a job, but it's saying, I have this unique interest or skill set. Would that match?
Right.
And being prepared to have a written up proposal that I can email them that afternoon.
Okay.
So that's kind of helped.
Okay. Got it. Go get her over there.
Doesn't work very long.
So-
Yes, Paul.
So it sounds like I've also heard that people are, have a little bit of anxiety about the interview process.
Mm-hmm.
Keep in mind, most interviews are one-on-one interaction, and I can tell you from experience, a lot of times the interviewer is just as anxious as the interviewee. They're not necessarily really skilled at what they do. So it can be part of the process to make them as comfortable as you want to be. And be yourself. Don't be intimidated. When I interview people, and you know, I'm 35, and a 50-year-old man comes in and he's 6'5" and 280, I tend to talk to them different than a 20-year-old female who's 110 pounds. I mean, it's just the physical aspects of what somebody brings into the room I mean, you've got your plan in your head on what you're gonna say, but that can throw you off right away. So, again, just keep in mind, they're a person just like you. They're probably as experienced or inexperienced as you are in this process. Maybe they've only done it 5 times, and you're there as much to, I don't know, teach them as they are to teach you. So, you know, just keep that in mind when you go through the process.
The place I worked, when we would hire people, we always tried to have HR do the interviews because they did more of them and they were a little more used to it. But because our jobs were a lot more technical, you know, we had to do the interviews too, and it was a lot of pressure to make sure we got a good hire. And so we were as nervous as they were that we were going to make a bad hire and you know, be stuck with somebody that wasn't right. And so I think a lot of times we would be as nervous doing the interview as they were doing it as well, because you know, we were just really freaked out that we were going to get, you know, bad, you know, employees out of it and have to be stuck with that label, like, oh yeah, that's the one Bob hired, you know? Like,
Most people are pretty perceptive, so within a minute or two of when the interview starts, you can kind of get the feel of how comfortable that person is. And if you sense that, you know, anxiety, just do your best to calm them down and make them feel at home, and it works.
Thank you. That's good advice coming from somebody who's been on both ends as an interviewer and E.
Okay.
I think we're going to scooch along, though, to start addressing when to disclose a disability, because that's something that was addressed that we really wanted to cover. We have about an hour left, so we got a lot to cover. So if we just wanted to take a look at this handout that we have here. This is determining if and when to disclose your disability to a potential employer. And actually, we were talking about this at dinner yesterday with a couple of folks, some who said they don't disclose. Some people say that you can do it at the time of application. It could be during an interview, after an interview. So this is going to go along what those advantages and disadvantages and issues are for disclosing at these different points in time. And then after we kind of review that, you'll think about which one would probably work for you, which you'd be most comfortable with. And then we're going to do a role play so you can actually practice what that would feel like to disclose. Does that sound like that would work for everyone?
I got a question about that.
Uh-huh.
What if they see the wheelchair? What if, first thing they do with me is, yeah, that's all they do.
So that's an obvious, yeah,
They
physical
don't, I don't even
disability.
have to tell them I have a CF, and the first thing they see, they're basing me off the wheelchair.
Right.
Doesn't matter. It
Uh-huh.
doesn't matter what I do. They're
In many
basing me off the
companies, that
wheelchair.
could be an advantage.
You then don't have to disclose, right?
No,
You-
it's like, I hate to say it, but this does happen.
Mm-hmm.
The reason I don't get hired is because of the chair.
Absolutely. Discrimination exists in all different capacities. If it's based on your sex, your age, your race, your abilities, absolutely, that exists. So that's a reality that we're all working with in different ways.
The office-
And I know that it happens because I know they're not trying to say they are, but I've done it so many times that I know they are, and they're going. My friends are saying, not all of them do, but some of them are saying, well, you can do this, and I go, but how do you prove it?
Well, sometimes the opposite's true too.
And of
that,
course.
I know one of our requirements in our department was that we have kind of a certain number of people with disabilities and a certain number of women and minorities, all that. And, there were times when we would rate someone higher if they fit into a category like that too, because that would help the department.
Diversify.
and all that.
Uh-huh. Right. So we never know if it's an advantage, it's a disadvantage, and you can spend your time trying to prove and fight that I was discriminated against. You could put your energy there, or you can put your energy onto, I'm never going to know, so I'm going to put my energy into the next thing, right?
I mean, I'm not saying I'm not wanting to do the discrimination thing.
Uh-huh.
I mean, people keep talking to me about it, and I go, it takes too long. I'm not even going to worry about it.
It is within your right, though, so that's something for you to
Yeah,
think
I know,
about.
but it's like, I mean, in some cases, if I really knew what I was doing and really wanted the job, yeah, I would. I mean, yeah, I would, but some of it's like, oh, it's some of it to me is like no big deal because, again, if you try to do it, it takes 2, 3, 5 years to even get it done.
Right.
And by then you're like, why did I even start this?
Yeah, it must be difficult, Brian, for you to
Yeah.
experience that. So I'm going to turn this over to just going over some of these different approaches that we could take. So time of disclosure on a job application. So when you're applying, sometimes I think it's illegal for them to put on an application if you have a disability, but if at that time, do you put it in your cover letter? Do you put it in your resume? Some of the advantages are honesty, peace of mind. Disadvantages are it might disqualify you right then and there, right? The issue is if you use this technique, you may have a harder time finding work, but usually have no disability-related problems when you do get the work, right? So just to go through number 2 so we can start processing what these different scenarios look like. So during an interview, do you think that during an interview may be a good time to disclose a disability? Some of the advantages are, again, the honesty and peace of mind. It's an opportunity to respond briefly and positively in person to specific disability issues. Discrimination might be less likely face-to-face. And you may disagree or agree with what these are saying, but this is just an outline, some ideas to start thinking. Brian, I'm sorry, we gotta keep
Okay.
scooching along, but maybe if you just hold your questions, we can address it after. So the disadvantages, it puts responsibility on you to handle the disability issues in a clear and non-threatening way. So the issues that could come up are, how comfortable are you with discussing your disability? Are you too preoccupied with it? These are very difficult questions, but ones that you can prepare to answer. So I don't know if anybody's thought about disclosing a disability during an interview, but here's some ideas around it. So after the interview, so when a job is offered, but before you actually begin work. Now, this is the one that I thought might work maybe well, but again, I haven't done it. But reading through this, I thought, that rings like that could be a good way to go. But the advantage is that you'd have honesty, peace of mind. If the disability information changes the hiring decision and you are sure that your disability will not interfere with your ability to perform, there may be legal recourse that you could take, and I do have resources that you could follow up and pursue that if you would like to. Disadvantages. Employers might feel you should have told them before a hiring decision was made. It might lead to distrust, maybe. Some of the issues are you need to honestly evaluate the disability in light of the specific tasks of the job being applied for. You need to be able to explain how disability will not interfere with ability to perform the job. This includes job safety. And I actually found a really cool, had anybody gone to, I think it's jan.org, the Job Association Network or something like that, which you also have this paper that I gave each of you, and you could feel free to write notes on the back. The Job Accommodation Network. So that's a website that could actually be, it's a really good way that you can educate your employer about how to support your success. So they offer free consultation to employers to help them prepare for your accommodations. So that's offering them a source of support. It's making it easier for them to navigate what that would look like. So is this helpful for you, just reading through these? How's it going? I know it's kind of dry to just kind of go through and read this, but I'm just trying to give some background.
Oh, I just wanted to comment that I think from my experience, the most important thing with all of this is preparation. Is to take the time to like actually plot out what you're going to say.
Yeah.
And what would you say? How could you frame things in a positive way? And how could you kind of not disclose your real insecurity about your disability and being in a job situation? Because I've been in places where I'm open. I mentioned the book or whatever, I'm open. But people like ask the craziest questions. And you're just like, I just get caught off guard. But I need to prepare myself for every question and a reasonable answer, not a reactive answer. Because I really get angry really quickly. Like, how dare you? But I can't, just calm down, don't react, just answer matter-of-factly, and just be cool. But I would only be able to do that if I could prepare for every possible answer.
And there's no way to do that,
There's
so
no
you
way
do
to
the
do
best
that,
you could, but really try to prepare. And there are a couple of different resources that I provided that you can try to educate yourself and then talk to an employer about those issues.
I've done it where I've gone to an employer and just talked to them, like what you're saying kind of. And I think for me, the best way to do it, because for me, like, I'm sure all of you guys can tell I'm super talkative. So I end up rambling like on and on and on. It's like, man, I'm telling these people things they don't even need to know really, So I think the best way to do it to make it so that your employer also doesn't freak out, because most of the time they probably haven't heard about CF or anything. I get those books that say like CF in the workplace, and then like accommodations for CF in the workplace. Like it's just a small pamphlet, and I'll go in and say like, oh, I just wanted to let you know, like I have cystic fibrosis. It shouldn't interfere with my job, and I just wanted to give you this educational pamphlet so that you can read through it. Whenever you get the time, why don't you do that? If you have any questions, just let me know. We can have a meeting. That's the best way for me to do it. Because then they educate themselves by reading it, most likely going online and looking at stuff. And then if they have a question, they'll really ask. But it's less awkward for them, even more than you. Like, I'm comfortable about talking about CF, but to them, it's uncomfortable. Like, what can I ask? What I can't ask for? They're like, these people and you just ask whatever, which is weird, but
Mhm.
I think it's the
Being
best way.
nonchalant, I think.
Yeah.
is-
Because if you go into it, they're gonna think that they're like, now they're really gonna have to accommodate you. What did they get themselves into, I think, sometimes. So I do it in a way where it's like, it really shouldn't be a problem, but I wanna tell you now, so if it is,
Okay.
we know how to approach it, I guess.
Yeah, thank you.
I think another good thing about that is that I guess they wouldn't feel like you might lie or something because they have other people, and it's not just coming from you, it's coming from a bunch of different places, and I can also underscore how different it can be for every person. Like some people might need more accommodations, other people might need something else. So while at the same time they're getting information from other people, they also know, okay, I need to go to you to find out about you specifically, what you need,
Mm-hmm.
that sort of thing.
You're modeling trust and
Right.
just being open communication.
And also about, when to talk about this, my mom always tells me that I should always do it like after I get the job. But I didn't really consider the first two, so.
Yeah. And then there's more. We're
Right.
gonna have a couple other options. So
Okay.
we're gonna move along to these last couple points, and then again we're gonna think through what you think might work for you, and we're gonna practice that. So the fourth one is after you start work. So the advantage is that that's an opportunity to prove your abilities and your strengths before disclosure. The disadvantage is there's a couple of them. Could change the interaction with your peers. Some issues that come up are the longer you put off disclosing, I think the harder it may become. Okay, so then another option here is this fifth one, after a disability-related problem has happened on the job. So here you are, something goes wrong, and then it's time to disclose. So the advantage is that's an opportunity to prove yourself, again, like the one before. The disadvantage is possible employer accusation of falsifying your application. That could be one result of it. Issues are relationships you establish with coworkers may be hurt if they feel you've been untruthful with them. So that really could be an issue. I mean, there's issues with all of these, right? So it just must be a tough thing. And then we got a never. So some people just may choose to never disclose, and you're bopping along, about your business, and you keep that to yourself. The advantages are that the employer can't respond to your disability unless you have a disability-related problem, so they might not know how to help or work with you if they don't know. I guess that would be the disadvantage. It can perpetuate disability myths and misunderstandings. I don't see how this advantage, the employer can't respond to your disability unless you have a disability-related problem, is an advantage, but,
They can't respond negatively.
oh, okay.
Like they can't discriminate you mean?
Well, some
don't know
applications
that.
I've seen they've asked, do you have a disability? And some applications don't ask that.
Okay.
So I've seen both.
Isn't it a
I gotta ask that in the interview.
I think
But I've
they
seen
do.
both.
That's like asking if you're black or white.
No, they
That's
all
what it is.
ask that.
But they
said,
do ask
"I
that
do
as
not-
well."
I do not wish
You
to
don't,
disclose.
yeah, you don't have to
Oh.
disclose it, but
No.
it does ask.
It
Only
asks.
like the optional form.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's disclose your race.
Yeah.
Your
Yeah.
age.
I do not wish to
It can't be
disclose.
specific.
Right.
It's to be
Yeah.
very general.
But then you don't know if it's an advantage there.
Right.
Who said it
They're
over
core
there?
equity.
The federal requirements, it
Mhm.
could be an advantage.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. You just never know. So an issue with never telling is if you haven't had a disability-related problem for a long time, the issue of disclosure becomes less critical. So you got 6 options here that we've outlined. If you want to just take a minute to kind of think through, read through them, process what's resonating, what sits well with you, what based on your experiences worked, and try to figure out which one you're going to try out right now. Just take a minute to think about that.
share really quickly with WorkFest?
Sure, yeah.
In my prior experience with WorkFest is after you start work, because I proved myself after whatever it was, weeks or months, that I'm doing a really good job here, got to know people a little bit, and then I kind of disclosed it in a nonchalant way.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Lana.
What
Did
do you
anybody
mean
else?
in a Nonchalant way, like, oh, by the way, FCM.
Exactly. Well, it just came up because I was working in a small office and I would be coughing a lot. And I don't think they said anything for a while. And so I kind of was like, oh, by the way, I'm just coughing because I have cystic fibrosis. And I don't know if you know about it, but I'd be happy to,
I see.
explain it. And then a lot of people have a connection, or like one woman I worked with, her dad was a doctor, so like she had heard of it.
I see.
Could we get one more example from somebody who something's worked?
I guess it worked. I guess I got hired and I didn't disclose in the interview. I was fairly healthy at the time, and so I didn't feel like my health would affect my work performance. But it sort of became unavoidable at one point. I had really bad hemoptysis, and I had to go into the hospital, and I let my employer know that I was sick and I would be out for a while, but I didn't tell him why necessarily. And then I kept getting sick sort of repeatedly, at least once or twice a year. And so then I decided, they were starting to wonder, like, what's going on. I didn't want my employer to question me or have any negative feelings about me going out a couple times a year. So, I just sat him down and told him that I had cystic fibrosis and that I may need to periodically go in the hospital. He said as long as, I gave them enough notice and cooperated with them, I had a full workload, so unfortunately my colleagues had to pick up the slack. And so I made myself available while I was out. If people had questions about anything, and so I tried to be as accommodating as I could while I was out. So, because I didn't want to piss off my coworkers, because I knew they were kind of like, oh god, they have to take over all this work. And so, I felt like there was an advantage to being open and honest about it, and also being very proactive about it, and trying to be as accommodating as I could. But I guess when I was first hired, I just didn't feel like it was necessary. But I know now that if I was getting sick, having to go to the hospital, I probably would bring it up sooner than later. For me, it was just a matter of necessity. I had to let them know so that they trusted me and we could keep things going. So.
Okay. Thank you. So we just want to take this time to practice what this would look like, except number 6. We're not going to role play the never option. But 1 through 5, if you can buddy up, if we can try to get folks paired with a non-CF person and a CF person to practice what that would feel like for you, whichever one you've chosen, we'll just practice that scenario and what that would feel like to tell your employer about your disability. So, David, I don't know if maybe you can sit with Tony, and then, hi, would you be able to sit with Kayla? Did you want to, maybe come sit with, I'm sorry, what was your name? Michelle.
I'll come over.
Yeah.
Kristen.
Okay, so maybe Kristen, if you wanted to buddy up with Ryan.
I pretty much said Kristen.
I'll go with further part, maybe Paul,
kind of going,
Maybe we'll challenge you to it.
kind of going like this.
I was working here about and then when I was saying, it was easy for me because one of the managers but she had decided. He said, I wish you could have met her. She died a month before I got there. He jotted down a map. Other managers, how often do they do this? And I'm not weird, but like, whoa, you actually know what this is? Yeah. Every once in a while, I tell I went to an appointment, how did it go?
So I think it's
I'm right there.
so what would it be like when you had a team? Like for you to say, here I am, thank you for having me, and I want you to complete. And then next thing,
My thing I have disability. Here's another one. My problem is how do I
or do you need to do coaches to get you got you get to complete maybe you just start on that. And once you get the job, then you can also let them know you did it, I also have this perspective, and what that means for this and that. Here's how I work around it, I control my medication, I don't perceive it as being a problem for me, I'm at work every day.
yeah, I understand what you're coming from. But I was telling Chris, it's the fact that I didn't have to explain it because, yeah, do you have any,
Sometimes, like we were saying, they're looking for people who have disabilities to make a routine environment. So going in and not thinking, oh, my disability is going to prevent me from getting this job, right?
Right, because I mean, there's that fear factor of like doing the interview and then letting them know now I want to go and
Yeah, exactly.
That's when people hire you.
before it gets to
I volunteer, I attend this, every year, engage in the lab, how to make your conversation, see that you're positive, trying to keep it positive.
That's how I feel.
We voted for number 4. We liked it, we talked it out, and we actually really liked number 4. Because number 6 is
Not happening.
it's just a matter of time. For it to happen. Right. The other thing is that, during the interview, we find out, like, thank you so much for my track record, why,
So I think we're gonna wrap it up. I think everybody got a chance to either practice or talk about what their experiences have been. So if we can come back together as a group. How did that go for everybody? I know Jamie and Darren seem to have a good little experience over there. So does anybody want to share how that felt to talk and communicate with their and disclose their disability?
I would disclose what my end of it was.
Okay.
And hearing it.
Okay.
Is that I felt so comfortable, what Kayla said, what Kayla was saying to me and what her approach was basically waiting till what she said earlier, getting the job and then taking a proactive moment to put it out there and just say, here, here's what I have, here's the information. She also said that she did research before getting a job and found out that one of their charities was Make-A-Wish Foundation, and she at one time was a Make-A-Wish kid. So she did that research and then brought that into the interview, which I thought put such a positive light on it, and also have what employer wouldn't embrace, you know, that somebody who, you know, is part of a charity that they support. So that was really great. I have my own disability of a hearing loss, so you know, she put it back on me. You know, and it made me start thinking about, you know, the issues that I've dealt with. And so, you know, I think we just had a really good conversation about it. That, you know, you just got to find what works for you. And that every company is not the same. So,
Yes.
you know, what works for one company is always going to work,
That's
you know,
true.
for different people. So.
Thinking about the culture and the dynamics of the work that you're going into, feeling it out, when is it a right time to talk about that? And also, you really bring up a good point. It's so different for everybody, what feels right for each of you. Thank you. Yeah. Did anybody else?
Your employer already knowing what CF is.
That helped. Okay. Anybody else? What worked, didn't work? What did you learn?
I would just like to make the point that, you know, the interview, like what we were talking about, goes both ways. It's also an opportunity for you to interview the employer and say, you know, maybe at that point, like, the expectation is way too high. Like, given my health, given, you know, whatever it is that I'm dealing with at that moment, I can't fulfill the expectation of, you know, whatever it may be, full-time work, extra hours, you know, maybe an unclean environment, like whatever it is, that's the opportunity for you as an employee or a potential employee to ask questions and definitely interview the employer as well. So that maybe that will help with the disclosure and when is a good time.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So we were
Good
just-
point.
We were just talking about that, and then we also liked, did you want to
Was
talk
it-
about that one?
Oh,
the number four?
Yeah, the number 4 after you start the work, because, you know, you're in there, you're getting a little repertoire going, and most of us can feel when we're not gonna feel good, so you go, you know, I'm gonna have to go in for an exacerbation, and it's gonna be 14 weeks, so they can make reasonable accommodations,
Mhm.
which is what our employer is required to do anyway,
Mhm.
and they can start diversing the workout, and how reasonable are we on our end as a patient? Can you come back to work with a PICC line, and are you willing to do that?
Uh-huh.
You know, that's also a reasonable thing. So once you're in there and you like it and you're working it, you know, can you learn to be reasonable as well as your employer? So kind of an equal, let's get past this thing and move on to the next task.
Mm-hmm. I like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good idea.
I was gonna say, I agree, because I've had people on my team who have had, you know, issues and stuff come up, and, you know, as the employer, I wanna be able to say, well, how can I help you work at the same time, so that you're not using up all of your PTO, on sick leave? So, can you work 4 hours, and maybe take PTO 4 hours?
Mm.
And I set you up to work at home full time. I don't want to say, okay, keep working, you're gonna get better, because if you need the full amount of time off
Mm-hmm.
to, you know, to get better, then that's fine. But if you do feel that you can do 40% or 80%, you know, let us know. And, you know, fortunately these days, so many jobs can be done at home.
That's right.
Or at retreat.
Good point.
4 hours today.
That's
There's a
right.
lot of employers who don't want to be flexible. You see a variety. You're with a company that luckily is blessed, has that culture model that you're able to say, okay, if you can't work 40 hours, how about 20, 20 at the office and 20 at home? You know, I'm in a very good job situation, but I'm not to the point that my job is not, can't do 20, so, you know, I'm not able to work full time.
Some just don't want to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to take time out of their life to deal with what's going on in your life.
Mm-hmm.
And you could tell that by talking to them sometimes.
Okay. Oh. Well, I just want to be mindful, we only have about half an hour left, and we've still got a lot of goodies to talk about, but hopefully, thank you for being willing to give it a try, and that you're starting to build your confidence around disclosing a disability. It's a tough thing, I would imagine, so thanks for practicing. Just real quick to go over the gaps in your resume due to illness, I just had some notes. That's something I think if an employer actually asks at the time of interview, that it would be appropriate. It's a good opportunity at that time, if you feel comfortable, to let them know about a disability so that they understand any gaps. And then just be able to explain any positive aspects, that you have a new doctor, that you're managing your medications better. You don't see it, you don't foresee it being an issue. You know, you just want to let them know that you're in a place, you want to give them that confidence that you know, are going to be able to do the best that you can. So does that sound right or true, just in a brief
I think also,
1 minute?
These days, it's so common to be out of work for gaps of time.
That's right.
It may not even ever come up.
Mhm.
I mean, they may just think, well, it's the natural course of how businesses go in these days.
Absolutely. There's
You may-
layoffs, yeah.
You may not have to address it.
Right, yeah. So I would say, you know, I would only bring it up if the employer actually asked, yeah. So that's one way of handling those gaps. So the next part is missing work due to illness and rustiness. Is that what was going on there? So either we can go in two different directions if we want to talk about rustiness, or just because you haven't worked for a long time, and how to get your groove back, or if you want to talk about you got the job and you have to miss work because of an illness. Did anybody want to, or is this something we've kind of talked about already? Are we good with that? Just want to get the pulse of the group.
One thing I feel about rustiness, I mean, I'm young, so I probably don't know to the extent of what other people have experienced it. But I know with my dad, he's, and getting kind of old, but he's also highly trained and specialized, and he's been out of, not out of work, but out of the primary work that he was doing. I think for him, while he might be rusty at that, he's taken his skills and instead of working in exactly the same place, he's now working as a consultant for legal people. And I guess while you might have forgotten a lot of the nit-grits,
I like it.
there are a lot of big overarching skills that you still have because, I mean, if you have the nit-grits, you might not be able to know how exactly to apply them. So while you might fumble a little bit, okay, this goes here, this goes here, this goes here, and then tell other people to do the low-down stuff. But I guess I'm not entirely sure how true that is.
You're, I think, absolutely spot on. I think what you're talking about is transferable skills. So, and just being creative around, I kind of did something like that in that job I had at Kmart a few years ago. And I think that does apply, in this capacity. It's been a while and it doesn't totally relate, but kind of, but if you can sell it that way, that you helped 500 people in a month and, are able to kind of document and prove that I think that's really true, that if it's been a while, it's still something that you've done in the past that applies. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, like, while it's not a perfect match, hey, there's some things in here that, all jobs need, like, not punching people in the face.
Right.
Being articulate about what you can, what, like, this needs here and what this needs here, and seeing where you can get those things.
Right. So it's just getting creative with it, I think, and that might help brush off some of that rust, is really thinking back to all your experiences, even with school. Was there a class that you took that's applicable? Can you kind of relate that? If you can do that on your resume, like, you will get an interview. If you got a kick butt cover letter and resume that really stands out, and you're able to say, just referring back to what you've done in the past in so many different capacities, volunteering or what have you, that'll kind of brush off some of that rust. Just drawing those connections.
Another thing about that, I don't want to hog on the talking, but I know for myself, I'm studying to be an engineer, but I do also a lot of volunteer work at my school. I like with activism and stuff, and those kind of seem like apples and oranges. But I think for myself, I didn't think that myself, like, why am I doing this when it's completely different from my career? But at the same time, I know I want to help people, and engineering, it can sound so abstract, I just think in a box all day. But no, a lot of the thing about engineering is that you're creating tools and solutions to help other people solve their problems. So it is applicable, it's just, you gotta think about it.
Right. You gotta get creative with selling yourself.
Right.
Or telling, I don't like the word selling yourself, but rather telling your story. Yeah. Okay, so just to move along, does anybody want to talk about missing work due to illness? What do you do when the caca hits the fan and you got to miss work?
Go to HR. So go to HR. I feel like you just go there. Don't even deal with it about spreading the word to everybody else, because HR is the ones who handle everything.
Ooh, I didn't think about that. What do y'all think about that?
I did that. I
I
mean,
agree.
just call HR, say, I work these many hours, how much time off am I allotted? And they gave me the approximate percentage and calculated how many hours a year. And so I kind of am budgeting. These are the days I need off. These are the days I can schedule my sinus surgery. You know, like, and if my boss gives me shit, then I can say, look, I have 18 days and this is how I'm gonna use it, blah, blah, blah.
Wow.
And also, like, as soon as you know, for me, it's like I push myself until it's like, oh crap, I'm going in, like, so for me, it isn't good, no one should do that, but, that's how it happens for me. So for me, I usually call, the social worker or the CF coordinator at the clinic and say, hey, I'm gonna need time off work, can you please fax me over a letter right now saying that I have CF and I'm being admitted.
Mm-hmm.
And so I get that letter in, and they don't need to be specific to why, but just having that actual letter from a doctor sign, it's like your work cannot question you legally, so you bring that to HR and like, yeah, it sucks because you feel, for me, like the first couple times you do, or first 1 time, 2 times you do that, it sucks because you feel like you don't want everyone to look at you like you're taking a vacation or something, but like, if you have that in, they really can't.
But sometimes you have to do that because.
I think it depends where you work.
Yeah.
But that's just my approach, so that no one can question me. Like the whole thing of like proving you're not just taking days off, you're really, you're sick.
You can also, like, if you only get 18 days a year, you can also ask HR about short-term disability or employee, like employee donor program, where your coworkers donate an hour or something a month to you. I was out 3.5 months last year. And I modified my job so that I could actually, when I started feeling better, I could work at home, like come for an hour a day, and I was done. I'd go and work the rest of the day at home. And me and my boss and I had a great communication where I didn't even have to check with HR. But I checked, my boss and her supervisor checked with HR to protect me as an employee, what my legal rights were. That if I ran out of my hours of, my annual leave and my sick leave, what were my legal rights as an employee? And then we looked into short-term disability and donor programs, so there's options out there.
That's great. That's so helpful to
My
know.
dad's
Thank
company
you.
has the donor program.
Cool. Yeah, so that's a great resource, that people donate their vacation and sick hours, right? Okay. Okay. So, something though, just in terms of missing work due to illness, if possible, you may want to try to check in with your supervisor, and I think Jessica brought up a great point about in this day that a lot of work can be done from home, so offering that up as, if you're feeling well enough to be able to do some work at home, possibly reducing your hours if you can just come in a little bit to help out if that's possible. And then offering plans of action to compensate. So I'm going to be out for, this couple weeks, but by the time when I come back on this date, I should be able to start working on this and that to be able to meet that deadline. Or I'm going to communicate with Sally so that she's going to kind of work on this while I'm out. So offering some solutions to get things done the best that you can. Okay, so at this point, there's probably just one of these 2 things that we'd be able to do at this point. The career exploration is just a really fun thing to do to get to know yourself and some areas of interest for you moving forward. And then we can also just get down to the nit-grit if you have actual questions about cover letter, resumes, interviewing, networking. I also have some goodies here. Some resources that you could take home. So what would you all like to do? Can we get a raise of hands for those interested in career exploration assessment? 1. 1, 2, 3, 4. True colors, yeah. 5-ish, 6-ish. Okay, 7-ish for the fun true colors. Who wants to get down to the nit grit and has some questions about resume, cover letter, that type of thing? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That was a close one. So what we could do even is a little subgroup. We only have 15 minutes, but we can do some nit grit over here, and then the true colors actually kind of runs itself. So true colors folks over here can do that. Does that sound good? Okay. So let's do like a little circle around here. So Brian, you can facilitate this one here. This is yeah, true colors.
Pushing your head.
I guess it's possible.
Okay, so third colors are very black.
I didn't
Colors on this side.
Colors over here, nit grit over here, and we only have about 15 minutes, so let's do this.
What color am I?
We'll find out.
Colors don't run.
Two colors. All right.
So what kind of questions
And
do
two
you
colors.
have? I've got networking, interviewing, cover letter resume. Okay, so let's start with that.
And you can decide.
I love myself some cover letters and resume.
So bad.
Okay. Cover letter.
I'm retired. No,
Yeah.
No, I'll just say I think other than a different perspective. Because all of these, when it comes to.
How about if you want to do that? Read them,
Okay.
right?
Cover letter resume.
Definitely
Info.
not
Read
until
pretty self-explanatory. And if you go through the
So,
process and you figure
I-
out what color you
I mean,
want,
are you
then
guys-
there's information
Robert,
on your colors.
you guys want to join the circle too?
No.
Oh, no.
True colors.
Okay.
Colors, nit grit. You guys gotta make it happen.
We were just
True
like-
colors.
We're
Nit
two
grit.
colors. We were
Okay.
just doing it.
Oh, now you gotta
I
join the
didn't get it.
crew.
We were just spreading out.
Okay.
Sorry, we're on it. We're over here.
Okay. So,
So,
like we talked about earlier, just changing it into, hey, this is my story and this is why I'm excited about working with this company. I like this one because it has a, so this is a cover letter of Seth right here. And what I like about it is that he's giving a personal touch and giving actual stories and examples of work that he's done that are applicable to what he's looking into.
So take the one that's
Okay,
back
so
to you, and then you'll
the
be.
cover letter is just really kind of a supplemental piece for, to get that employer's, that employer's attention.
Oh, okay.
yeah, so you put like, say on most like, yeah.
You just take the time to
You
read.
put 4
But,
and 2.
So go through each one.
And each,
Okay.
and each.
This is where people kind of just are
So
like,
it's
whoa.
like A.
Because if you ask 10 different career counselors, their advisor opinions about their actual resume, you'll get 10 different answers. I personally love the skills-based resumes. How many of you use the chronological?
Yeah, so if there's one where it stands out.
Damn straight.
Yeah, and highlight, right, yeah, it'll say you worked at Genentech, this date, and those are the things that you did, right? That's a more traditional approach.
I'm just
What I
not
really like
that, I'm
about
not
this,
this,
and
I'm
it's worked
responsible, but I'm
for
not
me in the
traditional.
last 3-4 jobs I've had, is,
I'm
that
putting
it's an opportunity to really hone in and nail down
Harmonious?
exactly what it is that they want.
Does anyone have a dictionary?
That job
Harmonious?
description, and then laying it out here, so.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, harmony?
I mean,
Only
like,
highlighted
you
down
and
here.
everybody.
You're happy, you're content, relaxed, everything flows
You
well.
worked at
Oh, like you work well with
Genentech.
the group?
Yeah.
And that's not really the work
You don't
that you
kill
wanna be doing.
I guess.
You don't wanna highlight all the
Yeah.
stuff that you did there and go on about it if it's not even relevant to what you're moving into. So what if it is? If it is, I mean, then totally go for it.
Go
That's,
with the traditional.
yeah.
If
So
it's relevant.
if the jobs that you've had, if you're really happy with that those jobs are relevant into what you're moving into, then you might wanna stick to chronological. That's good, but, I
Well,
feel like
just do a
when I see
forward.
chronological resumes,
Now you
it's
need
got
to come
stuff
down.
about I made pizzas for blah, 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 and it's not applicable. Right, so if you, just do your objectives and
Oh.
that you wanna work
I-
in
I
that
should change
specific
competent,
position,
'cause I
not
just did
that
it all
specific
backwards.
company, they're gonna be, okay, well, she took the time to customize that resume, okay? Education, if you wanna highlight that there or a little bit further down, that's okay. But what I really like
I
about
feel like
this
the
one
two is
is
like
that
what
they
you
broke
want,
down the
but I
sales
Once you got your
skills, the
first one,
communication skills,
I thought you
organizational
said
and
royal.
manager
I was
skills.
like,
And they probably took that directly
I'm
from,
royal.
again, the job application.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying,
So
like,
they're seeing the
like, I am
description, so
royal.
they want somebody with 5 years,
Also
sales
unique,
experience. So under sales skills,
yeah.
you know, you're quantifying and you're saying exactly, you know, that you did. So it's directly taking the wording and proving that you have done
It's
it.
funny 'cause you say that all the
in about
time.
8 to 10 different points. Some people, this Regina here had broken it down into different, categories, but you don't need to do that. You can just put relevant experience, and then they want this, I'm gonna prove that I can. And just straight up off of the good, you know, and I think
Why does
for me,
compose become
that's the most critical piece about doing a resume that leadership jobs is listing out exactly
I
what
mean,
they
I'm
want and proving.
tender and inspirational. I don't know if I'm gonna go that next.
Exactly.
I'm like
And
tender.
then
Why
they're
you
just
crying?
like, tender, this person's got like all the stuff that I'm looking for. Instead of, there's like pizza making back in 1992, like, you know, that just wastes space. And then just really briefly, and then if you have gaps in your resume, it's not as prominent because it's just listed out here on the bottom. You know, I did work here, for those dates, but it's not as important as, I've got the skills, like, that's what you want, I've got it. So that to me, like, I just love
Otherwise, you can kind of
skills-based
repeat the
resumes.
I feel so
8 to 10 years, maybe?
This has to do with only work, right?
Because the way that,
Oh, I thought it was only in work, in the workplace. Oh, I have to restart?
they have a
Well, are you that different
program
when
that
you're
lets you fill
working?
out your resume.
Well, yeah, I'm
And it's
professional.
totally old.
And when they went up
the
like
way
this, I'm like,
you were
Chronological, yeah,
It's
that's.
totally old school.
And that
Well, I mean,
works,
it's
but
really
I
hard.
personally think this is great because, just gets down to the point. And then at the bottom, you have some volunteer leadership awards, I think you can
Does that
highlight,
mean you like
you
running?
know, volunteer, you attend a retreat. Heck, yeah.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do.
Add the
Because,
number. Awards and things like
I'll give you an example. When I know this is
Oh
just
my
in
gosh.
college, but
This bro
when I,
fact is like all.
I'm an English guy. When I put that on
Yeah, that's
the
what I'm
resume in the
no.
resume in my college application, they're like, whoa.
Yeah, right. And if you limit it to maybe like 4
Add the numbers
awards,
of
accomplishments, committees, that type of thing,
Oh,
that would really help, because they're saying, oh, they're not only concerned about work, they're also involved in the community.
But you don't have to like write your role in each one because it's already in here.
I do, I actually do in the leadership
that mean?
circles, I wrote, since I wrote as a committee member, with dates, and then volunteered for 1 week, blah, blah, blah. And then one of 5 people selected to go to Japan. So, yeah, if you can really highlight that, you want that to be that really helps to see, oh, there's
I
not
find most things
there,
very
you're
useful
going
in
to
the
go
shower.
doing everything. So I think that's.
Well, I heard Ryan's
And then the important
Yes.
thing, this isn't the correct format, it should take up the whole page. But also just, you may have 100 years of work experience, but keeping it to 1 page. No employer wants to dig through 3 pages, but you've gotta like keep it just concise to 1
This is like
page.
8 font.
I know, it should be bigger.
But I mean, you could write something with tiny font.
No, I would say no smaller than like 11 points, yeah. And then-
So
So, how do you,
Right, but I think for me, when I didn't come just all over the first page, oh, well, this is too much. So much more, you wanna make it easier for them to see, hey, they got the skills, I'm just gonna call them and do the interview, because in reality, they don't wanna read 3 pages, they wanna see, and that's a skill also that you're demonstrating. I have the ability to keep it inside. I have tons of relevant information, which could make it a 10-page novel, but I got it on 1 page, so you can just
So apparently I'm gold.
References will be correct upon request.
I like to have that ready to go, so when I come in, when you actually go in for an interview, yeah, you got to
Nowadays, everything's online, so, I mean, I digitally type in my references.
Yeah.
I haven't written on the resume at all.
Right, yeah, so that, I think it's separate, never put that on your actual resume, that's a separate, easy to read people, how long I've known.
Nobody puts baby in a box.
I've never had a concern or a challenge of having a reference who's not your current boss.
No problem.
That's common.
Yeah.
Like you want to get out because of that boss.
Sure, yeah, just don't put them on there.
Not putting her name
What I've done
down.
is I'll put down another coworker that loves me, you know,
Yeah, right.
and they'll say, they also, that's, they still have a positive relationship with the people that you left. So mixing it up, somebody
I'm a mix.
who's, you know.
I'm a mixture.
Yeah, I am too.
I'm tired. I'm
Keep
orange.
it to like maybe 3 or 4 references on a separate page.
And then what is that?
No, but yes.
Trick questioner?
And that's
Never
what.
tried.
Oh, this is
If
just
it's not a, if it's not the right fit and that person's not gonna say that you're a rock star, leave them out. And it could be.
Orange, I act on a
Maybe
moment's
volunteers
notice.
this,
Hell yeah.
Or maybe you'd be willing to speak to.
Oh,
do you? I'm sure you do.
I
It
guess.
has to be a formal.
This is so
Would
neat.
that be?
This is why I have the best Baskin Robbins on the peninsula.
Now you just said Jessica, I mean, would that be feasible? He's only known.
I told you it's a genius.
A reference on there, who's not.
I'm gonna show this to my
reference of
boss.
before you,
I'm wondering.
that person, or you email.
He would be
Hi,
orange
I'm
too.
looking for a job.
That's why we
I'm
clash.
wondering if you'd be willing
You
to
can't
be a
have 2
reference.
oranges as a
And
boss.
they're gonna be like, sure,
The only-
or no.
Bad news.
The only other reason I would ask is,
Yeah.
I'm asking you this question because
Okay, so
she's only seen me once.
Oranges, yeah.
Become leader of the day or join the committee or.
This is hilarious. Under leadership, I do expect.
You have a leadership.
I need to feel needed. I have the need to be here.
You're an integral part of the leadership.
right, or that you participate actively in conversations, you know.
I should.
I'm curious about complaining, like how far out?
You totally complain all the time.
So you, yeah, that's the thing, under education.
Yeah, I don't run away and drop out.
Yeah, I personally didn't have a rock star teaching. I leave it out, you know, that's fine, if they really.
I do
want
break
me
the
to
rules
know.
intentionally, however.
It's not- I know, that's okay.
Not really.
I don't see how these stress factors correlate with,
Following of leaders?
oh my god.
Oh my god, that's so true. I stress when I have to lie.
Writing.
Oh my, I'm the worst liar.
I'm a natural romantic.
Oh, yeah.
I lie when I lie. Also, when I get in trouble, I laugh.
Probably
Uncontrollable.
Right?
Like, anytime I get in trouble with my name, I just laugh.
Broke it down in
Roy?
skills.
I do act out
What I like
boisterously.
walks on the beach. I like romance.
Hey, where's Joyce? I don't get that. Equal adventure girls, life and success. That's funny.
My needs are understanding, support, and sensitivity. That's true. My strengths are communication, optimism.
I am going to take a picture of this and send it to you.
Yeah, I love this. I
And it's done, it has to be done, almost at least get an interview.
My frustrations are just sort of
Yeah.
complex.
Huh?
Is that the way you would do it?
Totally, yes, that's what I'm saying, that's how I've gotten
Mine
jobs,
are
I really
also
not to like toot my horn, but like I love the resume. And there's a format that I use, and when I turn it in, marketing service, that's what employers are saying, like, this is how everything I want, like, what do I want? You know, I'm also supposed to. And if you have questions, definitely send me your resume. Well, I like to give it to like 3 or 4 people so that, I get lots of different. I know Brian looked at all of them.
How are you? I am so sending this picture to my boss. What?
Well, for me, my glue wasn't very hot because I'm more jewelry.
I have a question.
I think that's. So how would that be?
That's so neat. Huh?
You can shorten it a little, I like it now, it's easy
Most large companies, that stuff goes to HR feels it all.
It says I'm in natural world.
And that's what you're.
I'm bored.
Yeah, I agree.
That's kind of true.
So did everyone else get
Oh, I love my juicy big old cover letters. You have more.
I'm the only blue.
No, I don't. It's just.
I'm a natural performer.
I'm the natural
Oh,
one.
it's like, I don't know if you did it. I read about, and I'm really impressed with your practice in doing this. I love that.
That's what it says. I consider life a game, people. And there's my picture.
One of my favorite things I did at my last job was X, Y, Z.
My stress is
The
lying.
result, I always like to be.
My stress
But when I have to
So,
wash,
this is what I did at my last job, and the result is that
I usually don't.
our number of customers by 50%.
No, I don't know. I need freedom. That's true. When I'm in the hospital,
I'm
it's
an
like,
introvert person, and it's not
I need
because
freedom.
time
Yeah,
to my
it's
brain.
My frustrations are deadlines. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So if I wanted to sell
Nagging, that's frustrating. My mom.
Right. No, like never, yeah.
I just sent this to my boss. I'm like, look at my job Yeah.
Oh, no.
You're welcome.
Charlie Brown.
Charlie Brown. You're such a clown.
I know.
I think I'm bored.
And I wanted to talk about.
I'm slightly more.
But I would try to do a whole interview, 1 hour workshop, maybe next.
My choices.
But, if anybody has interviewing questions, how bad this was really helpful, it covers like everything. But on that page that I gave you, when you came and sat in your chairs, those are all websites that highlight colors, for assessments, so you can still go on there, do assessments, and then based on those items, suggest, it has all kinds of stuff about, cover letter, resume, looking into INC, all those things are on the second. So, there's a lot of work that you can do.
Rudeness and defiance for starting.
Sorry, I just covered.
How many people get to tell their boss, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life? I said that to my boss.
Yeah,
I've been working with him for 25 years, I can tell he's dumb. Dumb.
So are we gonna wrap up or should we just get it? But I mean, should we stay here and Okay. Oh, I didn't see them. I didn't see they were done.
I think I said, well, I don't know. I mean, it has.
All right, everybody, we're just gonna regroup for another 1 minute.
All right, just to wrap it up, if we could all just have a seat right before we're gonna go take off to lunch. Thank you, my shusher. So, thank you all for your attention. If you do have other questions, you can email me anytime. I would be happy to try to answer more of your questions. For the folks that did the True Colors, there are some resources there for cover letters, resumes, networking, interviewing, if you want to grab one of those on your way out. For those of you who we got down to the nit-grit, want to do a True Colors assessment, there are True Color assessments and the results there. And then on the back of, so I gave you this notes page and this resource page. These are very, very helpful websites for you to check out to continue learning about disability resources as well as career resources. So I hope you found that helpful. Does anybody have any other questions?
Before we break to lunch, can I just say something?
Absolutely.
Okay. Kristen and I are from the pharmaceutical side of things, and one thing that would impress me as talking with all of you is our experience is that patient education is always critically important. And it also seems as though, because of so many years of being focused on pediatrics, that we don't have nearly enough from an adult side of things. But my question is, would it be helpful, with our resources to develop something that is more geared toward job searching and all the things that you all have been talking about, for the adolescents and the young adults to see, what can we do? So we're here for a couple of hours, and I just want to say, if you've got some ideas and you want to bring it to us, we would really like to hear what you have to say in terms of what would be helpful and what kind of medium would be, best utilized. Because I think it's an important topic. I mean, I've heard some really, really great things the last couple of hours, and so if there's anything we can do, share your ideas.
What company is it from again?
Vertex.
Vertex, I love that.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for offering yourself as a resource.
That's what we're here for.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.